Hi everyone, it is time for the update on where I'm at in my writing journey currently. I just finished the weekly sprint that I typically do every Friday and wanted to let you in on what I worked on. It wasn't as much progress as I would have liked to have made, but it had been a while since I had looked at my actual writing. So to dive back into that, I had to reread what I already had. So it was a scene that I worked on, I think 2 weeks ago. I can't remember exactly, but it's my one scene that I have. It's the scene, the only scene that I had ever had in my mind for this story so far. And I had worked on it a couple of times recently, but I hadn't looked at it in a bit. And what I needed to do today was use what I worked on last week, which was some character development. If you remember, last week I worked on creating actual personalities for my characters because up until that point, I had only really thought about the role that they played within the story, and I decided that I needed them to have personalities. Crazy idea. And so that is what I worked on last week. And so this week, what I decided to do was go back to the scene that I have mostly written out, and I went through it again. One, to remind myself the scene itself, but also to start inserting the personality characteristics that I had developed last week into the scene so that it felt more like my characters walking into the scene rather than just beings that are only placeholders, if you will. So that's what I worked on today. Again, I didn't get as far as I wanted because I really had to start thinking about when this person walks in, how would they walk? How would they look around? What of their personality would create how they are in this scene? And so that took a little bit to figure out a little bit and to start inserting what I know about the characters now into that scene. So it feels more like real people, real characters that we are going to know a little bit at this point in the story. So it was really fun, a little challenging though, in that I still am getting to know the characters, even though I have some characteristics outlined at this point, but I feel like they're still new to me. They're new friends, and it was harder than I imagined to try to picture what it would look and feel like with real characters in the scene. But it was, again, it was really fun and it was a good challenge. And I'm looking forward to doing it not as two separate tasks, but doing it all at once, moving forward in the writing, because obviously that makes a little bit more sense. It takes a little bit more time, but I think that's the best way to do it, to only do it one time. I'm going to be revising enough as it is without doing it in layers. And I think too that as I start writing, the scenes will probably be easier to write when I know their personalities. And in fact, I'm not sure if I mentioned it when I did the journal for the character creations that I did, but scenes started popping into my head while I was creating the characteristics of each character. Like one is stoic and one is a little silly, and they're the ones that work together the most. And so I'm imagining them just walking down the road. What would it look like if one is serious and stoic and the other is a little sillier? And how does that stoic character react just in this scene of them walking down a road? And so instead, if I have a scene where they're walking, instead of them just walking, it's going to be infused with more personality because now I know one of them is very serious and one of them is less serious. So again, scenes just started popping into my head that are probably going to happen, maybe sitting around a fire at some point or being in a pub or something to that effect. And what does that dynamic look like now that one of the characters has earthworms coming out of her pockets, that kind of thing. Yeah, so that is where I'm at in the journey. And I know it probably seems very slow, but every little bit that I do and explore I'm learning more about my process. I'm learning more about the process in general of making sure that not only do I explain the scene and the scenery, but I explain how the characters interact with the scene and the scenery. And at some point, I'll probably take a class or something to that effect to learn more about scene development or character development. But right now, I'm just enjoying figuring out what I know and what I don't know and feeling it out and as a self exploration. And I'm okay with that. I think that's fun. And at some point, I'll probably be farther along in the journey where I'll feel like I need a little bit more structure. I love learning, so I'll get there. But right now, I'm trying to do it my own way and enjoy the process. All right, that's all I have for you today. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I do appreciate it, and I will see you next time.